Hello and welcome to this special discussion on The Wire. We have with us a very special guest, Mr. S.Y. Quraishi, former Chief Election Commissioner, a very popular one, and during his time a lot of reforms happened in the way elections are held in India. Welcome to our show, Mr. Quraishi. So let me kick off with the question that is exercising everybody at this moment. Elections to 5 states, but coming as it does immediately after the budget. Now, the opposition is raising a lot of questions as to whether such huge elections, nearly 1/5 of the population, if you take UP as a big one, happening just after the budget. Do you sense that there is something not quite right in this? In the past, have elections happened immediately after the budget?
Yes, in the past elections have happened. And one instance I'm able to recall immediately is 2008, when 3 northeastern states went to poll on 7th and 8th of March, Tripura, Nagaland, Meghalaya. Obviously, the budget would have come out on 28th. I was in the election commission then as a member, so I don't recall any debate and discussion.
And the opposition protesting, maybe because they are much smaller states and not so significant.
Correct. No, actually smaller and insignificant we take very seriously.
Yeah, sure.
Because everybody counts, every single voter counts. And the fact that the people have won and lost with just one vote. So to say that a small state or small people or very few people is not a good argument in democracy.
Okay, it's not a good argument, yeah. Yeah, and so tell me, how do you view? Although there is a precedent, as you just said, in the form of 3 northeastern states having gone to elections in 2008 just after the budget, but since UP is so hotly contested and it's being billed as a mini general election, do you think the government, when it presents the budget, should exercise self-restraint and not announce big populist welfare programs, although the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has already announced some of it on 31st of December. What is your view on that?
Yes, I do feel that the government is very sensitive. Government is fully aware of the sensitivity. Government knows and should know that the model code is to be observed in letter and spirit.
Okay.
And even the slightest violation invites a lot of criticism and trouble in the media and public protest. So I hope the government, being aware of this, will make sure that the populist announcement of the budget are kept on hold. Okay. In any case, we presume that the best, the most populous and most important announcement have already been made by the Prime Minister. That makes the job easy, because in the budget, if the same announcements are made and figures and amount is put into those announcements, the government will always take the view, and rightly, that there is nothing new, because old things are allowed. Because only new announcements are not allowed.
So you're saying that suppose the government hypothetically announces a huge farm loan waiver, that in your view will be violative of the spirit of the model code of conduct?
Yes, I should think so, because a happy voter suddenly changes his mind, or maybe even tax solves, income tax relief, and even to me as a pensioner, if there is some relief, it will create a feel-good factor.
Yeah, so it will impact the voters.
Yes,
so are you suggesting that even tax cuts they should hold and do it later?
Yes, because I personally don't see that after all, in the past also, there has been voter account, and the real budget, main budget, comes later. So heavens will not fall if a kind of voter account or only the budget goes ahead. But anything which can even be distantly construed as populist and which can influence the voters and which will put a government in the dock, because surely the opposition will complain, and the government of the day will be called to election commission. There will be almost quasi-judicial proceedings which have happened in the past.
In the past, yeah.
Just if you recall, once the law minister at that point, 5 years ago when I was in the office, the law minister made some announcement in the election for increasing some reservation. BJP complained, and the top lawyers of the country appeared on both sides, and finally we found that the complaint was justified, and we censured the minister. Now, the censure doesn't even have an appeal. Here the law minister of the land is to censured because BJP pointed out a violation of the model code.
Okay.
Now, obviously,
so this could happen again if some announcements are made.
Yes.
Populist announcements are made in the budget, right?
Yes, surely. The way already opposition is up in arms, then they will surely complain, and the same procedure which was followed then will be followed in the reverse. Now the boot will be on the other leg.
Yeah, so there is already a precedent in terms of the Election Commission having moved against such populist announcements just before the elections during the budget, right?
Yes.
So,
in fact, in our time in 2012, same set of 5 states were going to the poll. And we had a great dilemma because we had a very tight schedule. We wanted to do election not before January because December will mean previous year's electoral roll.
Sure.
And we have to finish the poll normally by the end of February because month of March is kept out of election because of the examination of children all over the country. So, and we wanted to finish it by 27th of February. Fortunately, the government announced that the budget will be on 16th of March. It came to us as a huge relief because 1 or 2 phases were falling after 20th February.
But here everything immediately starts after the budget.
Yes, that actually accentuates the problem.
I think this scale of elections affecting the size of population immediately after the budget hasn't happened.
Yes.
Although, as you said, in 2008, maybe just 3 northeastern states, but not populations being affected on this scale hasn't happened.
Yes. Also, because we heard the announcement that the government is planning to advance the budget from 28th of February to 1st of February, which has never happened before. I don't know.
They could have actually postponed it rather than advance.
Yeah. So I really don't know whether that's a final decision or that's just a thinking. So that complicates the thing even more because as it is, even for a phase or 2, we had to do a lot of tightrope walk. Here, the entire election will be after the budget.
So you're saying that if they do announce budget on 1st February, so it's up to the government to then voluntarily observe norms of good governance and not come up with big populist announcements.
Yes, because you know we must remember the model code of conduct is not a law. It's a gift to the nation by the political parties themselves. And therefore, they have now
so they must observe something that themselves have accepted historically.
And over the period of time, it has assumed the dimension of a moral code. It's a model code of conduct, but now people consider it as a moral code. So the moral authority of the model code is very important. All political parties know that and should be aware of it. But I would like to give one very interesting example from BJP itself. It was again in 2012, there's a by-election going on in Goa. Mr. Manohar Parrikar, BJP chief minister, was in power, and in the middle of the election, we heard that the BJP candidate is being made a minister. We thought that this will give an extra advantage to that candidate. So I sent a message through our CEO to the chief minister that he should just keep it in mind that this may disturb the level playing field. Next day he called me up and very angrily, and he said, Mr. Quraishi, this is my constitutional right to appoint anyone, anytime as a minister. I said, sir, you are 100% right. It is absolutely you have the constitutional right. I was just pointing out the moral authority of the model code. And I was so happy when he postponed his decision and even came out with a beautiful statement. Let me complete that, because he came out with a beautiful statement that I am sacrificing and surrendering my constitutional right on the altar of moral authority of the model code. Now that is a standard which was set up by a leader, which I think should be an example.
So BJP should observe that that code even now.
And it was even more pleasant, particularly because it came soon after the law minister incident, when law minister was hauled up for violating the model code in both letter and spirit.
And sir, one more thing, coming to the broader issue of funding of elections, funding reforms. You have been very vocal on election funding reforms, and in the context of demonetization, there is a huge sentiment among the people that if you're asking poor people or the less well-off, the Aam Janta, to come clean on their sources of money, etc. Why shouldn't political parties completely be transparent about how they are being funded? And this toxic rule of 20,000 rupees, up to 20,000 rupees being funded by individuals whose names need not be disclosed, which is the biggest Benami framework in my mind, which political parties use. Shouldn't this be done away with? Shouldn't Prime Minister Modi voluntarily announce that, yes, we are doing away with this completely non-transparent framework?
I think you have raised quite a number of issues within the subject of political finance. It is true that the electoral corruption is the root cause of all corruption in the country.
It creates the ecosystem for the black money, right?
Yes, because you spend crores of rupees mostly in black, and then you, after you come to power, then you start collecting because you have to refund.
Exactly.
So that is how the whole vicious cycle of corruption begins. And therefore, and what are the reasons? There are several. Many parliamentary committees and parliamentarian parties have suggested that there should be state funding of elections.
Or in any case, why should political parties directly accept money from corporate houses? That's when the quid pro quo develops. You know?
Yes, there are 2-3 issues there. One, that if there is state funding, obviously then private fund collection has to stop. And accounts will have to be audited.
Or if it is done, it should be done through the government or election commission.
Yeah, because what can happen is the corporates can donate to the election fund. Which can be
administered by the
election commission or by any independent authority, because it will be only the arithmetical exercise. I have given a formulation: no funding of elections, but funding of political parties for sure, because without political parties you can't run democracy. And how will it work? I said for every vote that you get 100 rupees. Last general election, 55 crore votes were cast. At 100 rupees, 5,500 crores we can give to the political party. Now this will compensate 4,500 crores or so, which they have shown as their collection all together in 5 years. So after all the arm twisting and illegal and extra legal measures, if you are able to raise only 4,500 crores, we give you 5,500 crores, but then no looking at private funding at all.
Absolutely, and no political party even now is clearly telling us what have they done with their 1,000 rupee and 500 rupee notes, whereas the people of India are depositing in the banks.
If I may come back to that, because that's the other issue. But personally, I'm very happy that Prime Minister for the first time is talking of electoral reform. And
but he's not committing. Given that he's acting as an evangelist against black money, why shouldn't he say that BJP is the first to take these
No, I think it's moving in that direction, because if you see the last 5-6 months, the action is moving in that direction.
You think that there is
obviously, if he's talking of political funding reform, which I heard only last night, so I'm sure something will come out of it. And let there be a national debate on this. I mean, my formulation, which I have mentioned many times in the press and conferences, I'm sure it will can also be discussed. And there is a formula: 60-70% of European countries have that state funding of political party, not of election. Because it is auditable. Because you can't fudge your vote. For every vote, we give you 100 rupees.
Absolutely. So, Quraishi Sahab, we have some questions coming from viewers. There is one from Gyana Shanmugam Subramaniam, and he is asking, is there any special arrangements to be made in the forthcoming 5 state elections to monitor the political parties and leaders who seek votes on the basis of caste and religion? Now he's talking about the context is the Supreme Court recent judgment. So whether is it possible to monitor such things? What action could be taken if it is found that they sought vote on the basis of caste and religion? What do you have to say to this?
Supreme Court judgment that way is nothing new. It is already part of the law from 1951, Representation of People Act, Section 123(3), which describes the corrupt practices. One of the corrupt practices is any appeal to voter in the name of caste and religion. So, and my election commission is very alert to that. Very often, suo moto, when it sees violation, it gives a notice under the model code and also files an FIR. But in any case, opposition parties are always vigilant. They lose no time.
They are natural.
Yes. Our best information comes from the opposition.
Natural watchdog.
Natural watchdog is the opposition. They immediately get to the election commission and notice is issued and quasi-judicial proceedings decide. And FIR is filed Where unfortunately the implementation is poor, because then FIR means it goes into judicial domain.
Yeah.
FIR will be investigated and charge sheet will be filed, and how long it will take in the court, we really don't know. That is very disappointing.
Yeah. And Quraishi sir, there is another question from Arun Imadi. He is asking you to suggest new ideas for strict enforcement of model code of conduct, number one. Number two is asking what are the consequences if the contender asks for votes in the name of caste and religion. That of course you have answered. So, any new ideas on stricter enforcement of model code of conduct? You talked about it acting as a moral authority, but any other ideas?
No, I think already we set up a model code of conduct watchdog teams of everywhere, even to see themselves. For instance, the mobile vans are going, whether something is being violated, some hate speech or excess expenditure, all that is being monitored. Plus, as I said, the opposition parties are very alert and they bring it to our notice. Media is alert. In fact, one very important case was started by us on a media report against Mr. Gandhi, who had made some hate speech.
Yeah.
It was shown in CNN, IBN. Rajdeep Sardesai called me and he said, "Have you seen that news?" I said, "No." So he said, "I'll send you the CD," and that is when the proceeding started.
Since you spoke about hate speech, we've also had hate speeches coming from the majoritarian, those who practice majoritarian politics. So has Election Commission, I'm sure, has also warned people on that count, communal statements, sharp communal statements coming from leaders during campaign?
Yes. Number one, leaders know all that, because the model code is their own creation. Model code of conduct has details out all these things. And Election Commission also, as a matter of extra precaution, sometimes writes to the political parties in advance, drawing attention to those clauses so that even inadvertently they do not violate the model code.
Okay.
So mostly the political parties respect, which is why you will find that the election is much cleaner now than it used to be. There is hardly any personal attacks, there is hardly any hate speech. If there is, it becomes big news, and it acts as a deterrent on others. By and large, our system is working pretty well, and it requires the vigilance of opposition parties, the media, the people. And we have 24/7 complaint recording mechanism, and our model MCC teams, they are alert, and we take prompt action.
There is one issue, Mr. Quraishi, which has troubled political parties, especially the opposition parties, which is when you phase out elections when you stretch it out so long, like 7 phases UP, then it creates self-fulfilling expectations. In the first 2 phases, some party does well. These pollsters, although they are not allowed to sort of reveal what the polls say, but they, by word of mouth, things go around, so and so party's done well, and then it impacts the 3rd phase, 4th phase. So, is there any way of dealing with this the self-fulfilling expectation that they created in a widely spread out election?
The holding of election in phases indeed has many problems. First of all, for a prolonged period, normal activity gets suspended, and new announcements, government activity, it gets suspended for sure. And in the context of the new media explosion, rumors go all over, and it must be influencing subsequent phases. All those problems are genuine and legitimate. But we have to weigh them against even a bigger problem. The biggest problem is loss of lives. We know historically, you know historically, that during election there will be violence and many people will get killed. Even one loss of life is not acceptable, which is why
from a security point of view, it's
and
more beneficial to phase it out.
Correct. That's why every political party demands that we bring central paramilitary forces to the election, because local police has lots of connections and it can be influenced and pressurized. Central forces are not subjected to any influence. And the central forces incidentally includes armed police of a state. For instance, Punjab armed police going to Tamil Nadu is not going to, they will not even understand the language. So same police which is not trusted within the state, when it goes outside, it is neutral and fine. So, and since paramilitary forces are limited, so whatever number we are able to get out of Home Ministry, we circulate, we rotate from one phase to the other. That's how the phases are decided. So the trade-off is very serious, and it is for people to choose.
Okay. Thank you very much for talking to us, Dr. S.Y. Quraishi. So that was the former Chief Election Commissioner talking to The Wire. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.